good morning and welcome to another video with A Guy and His Projects. Today we are working on this 2006 Chrysler Town Country. Today we're replacing pretty much the entire cooling system. The radiator, the upper and lower hoses, the bypass hose. They call it a bypass hose. I don't know why, it's just a metal hose, but we're replacing the thermostat housing because it's rusted, and the thermostat housing gasket because you're replacing the housing. I don't know why they don't just sell them together in the first place, but that's beyond me. We're going to do all that. Let's show you what you need to do what I'm doing. And all that being said, I am not a mechanic. Don't think that I am. I don't know what I'm doing from a mechanic standpoint. I'm just a guy that works with my hands and I can figure crap out, and I like to help other people figure crap out too. So, I'm not a mechanic. Don't think I'm a mechanic. I'm just a guy, all right? That has projects. What do you know? Okay, so over here we have our supply list. Obviously, first thing we need is a new radiator. You're going to need your new thermostat housing, your new thermostat, your thermostat gasket, your upper and lower radiator hoses with your bypass tube. I am buying, this vehicle takes the HOAT coolant, okay? Over there we have our distilled water, which is what it's going to be mixed with. You're going to need 2 of those. You're going to need at least 6 gallons of distilled water. That will get you through a flush of the system to clean it, as well as filling it back up when you're done. Again, that part I'll probably put in a different video to keep this a little bit shorter because I talk so much, but that's what you need for this job. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this van on ramps because I want to end up underneath, especially because I'm replacing that bypass metal tube under the vehicle. So you're going to get this on ramps. If you're putting it on ramps, make sure you set your emergency brake and put on some quality chocks behind the back tires. You don't have to do ramps. You can also do jacks and jack stands. I have ramps. It's easier to do ramps. You drive it up, less physical activity. I'm all for a big belly and less physical activity. We are going to have to take off this plastic bologna here. We're going to take off this cross member. Don't get afraid, it's all very easy. There's only a few bolts involved in the whole thing. And we're going to take off these fans. Before we start any of this, we have to drain the old coolant out because it hasn't all leaked out, just most of it. So we are going to drain the old coolant out. Now, if you are just doing a flush or something, you can do this very differently. You'll use the petcock. I am doing a complete system overhaul, so I'm going to be less careful because I want to get this done. So if you're not using the petcock, go ahead underneath the vehicle and stick a screwdriver in that lower hose to get it draining. And this thing stopped recording, but apparently we missed some stuff. I don't know how much. I haven't reviewed it. Not going to. It's very, very, very simple to get this far. Do not get intimidated. There was just some screws right here, boom, 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 you just pop out. There's 2 bolts right here, 12 millimeters, boop, and boop, just for this cross member. You didn't have to take anything else off, don't have to take the latch assembly, don't have to take hoses, don't have to do nothing. You just pull that up and move it out of your way. Easy, 4 bolts, that's it, okay? As far as the plastic other piece that's here, that right there, that was just these screws. There's a couple of those little plastic push pins. Just push those out, and that just kind of wiggled out, no problem whatsoever. The condenser and the radiator separate. There's a plastic latch. I'll show you on the new radiator when we get it out, or this one. You just squeeze those together, and the 2 separate. There's one of those on each side. The rest of it just sits in. As far as the fans go, there's 2 10mm bolts, one right here and one right here. You just take those out, and this separates everything here. There's bolts up top or clips. Down below they just slide into little places that they're supposed to be in. So it's really easy. You don't have to get down there or nothing. You just unbolt the tops and then pull them apart. The clips for the fans, they have these safety clips. You just push that up, and then you can squeeze the release tab right here and pull those out. There's one on each fan. Okay, so at this point we have the coolant pretty much drained from the bottom hose. We did the hose because I'm replacing it anyway, so I didn't care if I ruined it. You can do the drain petcock, whatever, it doesn't matter if you're replacing the hose anyway. It's faster through the hose, so I already re-drained that. Now, because we're on ramps, there's going to be a lot of fluid in the system that we don't get out, but that's okay because I just want the radiator empty to change it anyway. We'll flush the rest later. So we can't get the fans out till we take the upper hose off. We are replacing this hose. We're replacing the thermostat housing and the thermostat. So again, I don't really care about that. I'm going to put regular hose clamps on instead of these spring clamps when I'm done. So we're going to take this hose off, and then we can take the fan out. Then the radiator should just pop right out after we finish removing the bottom hose, and then just put it back in. All in all, this project for the whole thing, I'm guesstimating is going to take me about an hour and a half with the camera. Okay, I mean, I'm not spending much time on this. This is really easy. I'm using standard hand tools like you might have at home, so there's no surprises. I'm not using impacts. I'm doing it just like somebody that wants to fix their own radiator but doesn't have a lot of tools would do. Okay, now that we're all caught up to speed, let's continue. Remove the upper radiator hose clamp from the radiator and pull the hose off. There will be fluid in there, so careful where you put it. Pull out the fan assembly and dump the remaining coolant in that hose. Be sure you have a drip pan underneath to catch it. Come down to your lower radiator hose and go ahead and pull that off of the bypass tube. Come back upstairs and you should now be free to pull out your radiator. You will have to work it around some transmission and AC lines, but it will come out with enough persuasion and patience. Now come up to your thermostat housing, remove the upper radiator hose clamp from that as well, and you can either pull the hose off or just unbolt the whole housing with a 13mm socket. We're replacing the whole housing, so 2 bolts and just take the whole thing off. Much easier. You now have access to your thermostat gasket. Pull that off. You're going to clean up the whole surface area so that the new gasket sits properly. Downstairs, this is the bypass tube. Sorry about the camera quality. There's 2 bolts. You will find them. They are obvious, even though I can't show them in the picture. And as you loosen it, there will be more fluid coming out, so careful. Take the time, do some housekeeping, clean up your condenser and transmission cooler. Might as well clean the engine bay while you're there. That's your new bypass tube. Go ahead and put it up. Some wiggling, some persuasion, and some patience, and it will go back in. You might get a little frustrated along the way, but it does go back in, I swear. Put your new thermostat in. It only fits one way inside the housing, so it's hard to mess it up. So find where it sits, put your new gasket on. There's no up or down, so just put it in. Thread your bolts through and stick it back up against the engine. We're replacing the overflow hose as well, by the way, so I'm going to go ahead and slap that on. Downstairs, this is your lower radiator hose. It is directional. The smaller end goes on the bypass tube. The larger end goes on the radiator. Put your new hose clamp on. These clamps are what clip the condenser to the radiator. Very easy to operate, and you don't need any tools to get them done or undone. New radiator should be able to slide in just as the old one came out, which was fairly easy, all things considered. Like I said, move a couple hoses and you should be fine. You're going to want to make sure it sits right. There's some wiring on the bottom cross member there. Just got to move it out of the way. Once it sets in, you can clip it to the condenser or the condenser to the radiator, whichever way you want to look at it. 1 clip per side. Boop. Now we're golden. Moving on, put your cap on the radiator to avoid getting any dirt in the system. And you can now put your lower radiator hose on. I would recommend putting the clamp on the hose before you put the hose on the radiator, but do as you will, or as me, you can forget and do it later, but whatever. Clamp it down and put your fan assembly in. At this point, important to note that black cover going across the radiator needs to come off. I did not realize this at first and had to go back later to take it off. It's just 4 bolts, 2 on either side. Okay, now we have your upper radiator hose. Put it on the thermostat housing and put it on the radiator. Clamp her down, and we are just about done, guys. Put your weather stripping in between the condenser and the radiator and put your hose back on. Cut it to size if you replaced it for the coolant reservoir. The cross member goes on, 13mm bolts, as we can see the socket there. There are 4 13mm bolts for the cross member. Just put them down, tighten them up,
And after that, it is fairly simple to get this plastic piece on. It's more complicated than it needs to be, but not complicated, if that makes any sense. I believe that's a 10mm bolt right there, one on each side, so 2 bolts total. And then we've got 5 of these Phillips plastic screws. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, followed by a couple of these stupid plastic push pin connector things that everybody loves. Now you can plug in your radiator fans, 1 on each side, plug them in.
Alright, and that's it, guys. You plug those fans back in. That's everything except filling the radiator back up with coolant. So when you fill it back up, I'm going to have a new video on that just because of length. A lot of people just want to see how to burp their system. So that's going to be a whole video all by itself. It'll be very short, just filling the radiator and burping it, and that's it, okay? So click on the link down below. I'll link it below, and that'll take you to that video so you can finish this project. All in all, the project's going to take you about an hour, give or take, minus or plus, or I can't talk at all. But it's not a long project, it's not a hard project, it's actually very easy on this Chrysler. I believe in you, you can do it. If you want to see more of my videos, including that one where you're going to fill your radiator back up, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Watch my other videos as they come up. Let me know how I'm doing. Leave a thumbs up. But yeah, hit that subscribe button. Definitely hit that button. That is a very good button for you to hit. And you'll see more. I got plenty more coming up and plenty in the past. So that being said, I'll see you next time, guys. Adios.